We'll call the meeting to order and start with the roll call.
Hello, everybody. Okay. Chair Wertz.
Here.
Vice Chair Yant.
Here.
Tony Bevel.
I'm here.
Ruth Ann Rusnak.
Here.
Mike Smith.
Here.
Chris West.
Here.
All right, very good. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we'll do the approval of the minutes. Does anybody have any comments or revisions requested? If not, I guess we'll take a motion to approve those.
Anyone?
I think Ruth Ann did, but she was muted.
Oh.
So moved. And I'll second.
All right. All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
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 And all opposed? None. All right, we'll move on to business, and we start with the vacant position status update.
So we went back to the list of applicants that you all interviewed on, and Dorian Lates accepted the invitation to join us. It has to go to City Council. That's on the April 6th agenda. So if that goes as planned, he should be joining us at our April meeting.
Good. Thanks.
What was the name again? I missed.
Dorian Leibel.
Thank you.
All right, so on to issues and complaints, and start with the tracking sheet, which the ones that are open, we're going to touch on here, but I guess before we move on to the status updates on some of these open ones, does anybody have any comments on the tracking sheet in general?
So we heard at Police Advisory, Mike and I, that council has asked for a quarterly report. Maybe Captain or Angie can jump in here, but staff's going to be producing something to build upon this tracking report to provide to council every quarter, because I raised at Police Advisory that Police Advisory should be seeing something like our tracking sheet to know what the heck we've been doing besides relying on Mike and my reports.
Which are stellar, but you know.
Yes, we are in discussion on how we're going to present that, but yeah, we're going to be doing quarterly reports to City Council.
All right, thanks. So I guess let's just start with the status update on 2020-007.
Okay. So that one, the signs have been approved from last meeting. It went to City Manager Joe Gall. He approved it. It is now over in Public Works, and they are working on getting them, well, they are installed. So that is completed. The basketball hoop has been addressed and moved off the street. We do have a citizen comment that's going to be read during comments. And I do have an email. I'll just briefly go over a couple of lines in the email. but this was a citizen that was on Lavender Place. He's stating that he's very grateful of the work that the Traffic Safety Committee did, and that the roadway is no longer obstructed. So he just wanted to pass on that he is grateful to all of us for taking care of the issue. So after I believe the comment is read, if there's no objections at the end, we can probably close that one out.
I had some thoughts on the comment that came in, that wasn't the individual that wasn't happy with it, and I don't know if it's better to discuss it now or wait until the comment period time. I don't know if you have any thoughts on the most appropriate time to discuss that. It's not necessarily related directly to their comment, but just a process question and discussion.
Let's do that now. So then the comments will just be comments.
So I guess my question / comment is the notification process when we make decisions. So I guess if I could be reminded of what the kind of typical procedure is for notifications when we make decisions of certain types that have impact to the neighbors in the areas that we make decisions. Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe let's just start there. What's been the practice for notifications? I know this is new, but maybe we're just kind of going along with other committees or decision sort of processes the city does.
Yeah, since this was the very first one that we actually approved, where there was going to be some signage posted, it was kind of a learning curve on this one. Maybe Julia, if she doesn't mind, can speak up and go over the process. She's more familiar with it than I am.
Yeah, this was the first one where you guys made a decision. Before you existed, what we would do is when there was something where the city manager was considering a signage change such as this, we would post notice on the site and say that they had, I believe, 14 days to provide comments. We would then take those comments and the city manager, and actually he delegated it to me, over time, would weigh that and then ultimately make a decision. Now that you exist, you guys get to be the ones that make that decision. But in this particular instance, you made the decision sort of outside of that process. So we went out and we posted the signs, still provided an opportunity to provide comment, and those went to John. And I don't think that there was anything that we received or heard in the comments that caused us to think that it needed to go back to you, if I recall. I'm trying to remember. Going forward, what we envision doing is when things come to you that require that kind of notice, you would not make a decision. You would essentially be directing us to provide notice, and then we would compile those comments. And then before you make a decision, you would take into consideration all of those comments that are received and then make a decision. But in either case, we posted notice on the site, we posted notice on our webpage, and provided people an opportunity to comment. And certainly people did comment and saw it, even though there might have been a little confusion. I know that that we received quite a few just sort of email exchanges, I believe.
I think that's a good idea. I think I don't know, I suppose it's a balance between having an issue kind of drag out for a really long time while that process happens before a decision can be made, and then, but also allowing people to provide their feedback and comments so that we can hear from the people who are directly impacted to help us make better decisions, or just to make complete decisions.
Right. And actually, the comment process is actually in our code. So we have to provide that notice and provide an opportunity for people to provide comments. And that's why we were caught a little off guard with that first decision that you guys made, because we're like, oh yeah, there's this process that we have to follow too. So that's and that's why going forward, we'll make sure that we get your direction and then provide that notice opportunity before you make a decision.
So then, if I can restate, I think what I hear is that we would hear an issue, we would discuss it, and then make kind of a preliminary decision that would, like, let's say we're going to approve a sign or something like that. We wouldn't be necessarily making the final decision. It'd be like a preliminary decision.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, you've had several things come to you that through the course of the conversation, you decide doesn't warrant moving forward, right? And so, and John and I were talking a little bit about this, or emailing a little bit about this. It would be very cumbersome to do notices for everything that you get a request for. And so it's really, you get a request, you talk it through, you get input from Bob, you get input from the police, and then you say, yeah, this makes sense for us to consider that. Let's do the notice. And then we would do the notice and then come back to you at the next meeting and give you that input, and then you could make that decision.
And Julia, this is Ruth. Would you say again where this notice is posted? I'm not sure I was clear on that.
It's posted basically in the vicinity of where the traffic control change is being proposed, as well as on our website.
Okay, so at the site of the proposal and on
Yes.
the website. Okay.
Yeah.
Chris?
Yeah, so does the city have an appeal process if notice is given and a decision is made by whoever has the delegated authority to make the decision? Because this communication that we got today talks about an appeal. What's the city's policy on that?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I don't know 100% the answer, but I know we've had questions come up. I believe that there really isn't an appeal process per se. It's the city manager's decision. So you are making a recommendation to the city manager, and they are taking that recommendation and making the decision. And I have to look back. I know that there's been some discussions back and forth with our city attorney on some other related issues, and I don't believe that there is an appeal process beyond that point, beyond the city manager's decision. But I'll have to get back to you on that.
It might be something worth considering long term. I know when I worked in Newburgh and the traffic safety commission there, there was a formalized appeal process that if people disagreed, well, there was a notification process, not that different from what you just talked about. But if people disagreed and wanted to appeal the decision that was made, they would come back to the traffic safety committee. And then if they didn't get their issue resolved, then it would go to the city council. But it's just, I don't know. People like to make sure that their voice gets heard, and it's something to think about.
Yeah, I'll follow up and let you guys know where I just don't recall, and I'm sorry, what the interpretation from our city attorney was on this.
Okay. Thanks for the info.
So Jason, I guess given that we have this request for appeal process, and Julia needs to get back to us on that process, I guess I I'm not ready to entertain closing this, even though the signs have gone up. So I just toss that out.
I'm okay with that. Tiffany, Ruth Ann, Mike, you guys okay with that?
Yes, Ruth Ann's okay with that.
All right, we'll table that till next month. All right, so on to the next item, 2020-009, status update. I think you're muted, Captain.
Similar to the other one, it went to City Manager Joe Gall. He approved it, and it was forwarded to Public Works, and that's where it's sitting right now.
Was it noticed?
Since there's no impact on any specific residents, we didn't post any signs.
Is this one that we need to close, or did we already close this one?
It's
Liz?
pending.
Pending.
I'd say since the work hasn't been done, it's still pending.
And I'd agree.
Okay. All right, so next one is 2020-12, photometric data.
All right,
Wow.
that one I'm probably going to have to defer to the city engineer, Bob Galati, if he could maybe talk about that one.
Okay, so Sunset and Lad Hill did receive a new installed light from Public Works. The light meter has arrived. I've given it over to our code enforcement officer so that he can do some training with it. But we haven't gone back out into the field as of yet to actually do any work with it. We'll schedule it in and get it done.
Thanks for the update. All right, if no other thoughts on those, then we'll move on to the new ones. 2021-001, Sunset and Lad Hill.
So this is my neighborhood, and this is the intersection, or where I travel every day to and from. I guess the intersection is what it is, and there hasn't been that many accidents that I know of at that location, and maybe staff can get us some information on that. But I think it's during school time. There's cross guards there. It's very well controlled. Heading out of town up Lad Hill, there's a new flashing speed sign. There's always been the issue of cars and bikes coming down Lad Hill, ripping into that intersection. And back in the day, right there on Willow and Lad Hill, they're on the northwest side, I think that would be, was a perfect spot that there was PD always sitting and waiting to enforce. And I haven't seen anybody there in a while, but it was a pretty regular spot for somebody to sit and do a little enforcement action. And it was a perfect spot for catching the people coming down the hill fast. So my bigger issue on that intersection is when I cross to the other side of Lad Hill and I'm trying to come out to cross Lad Hill to go into my neighborhood, and being able to see looking up Lad Hill, it's a really hard spot. You have to really nose out to be able to see people coming down Lad Hill. That was not on this, and I just offer that for a little color commentary.
I'm kind of with Chris on this. I live a block away from that intersection, so I have to go through it every day, several times just to get out. The intersection, it's a funky intersection, I grant, because Sunset is a pretty steep hill coming down there. But I haven't seen any accidents. I have seen a couple cars go through without stopping, but the people as they were going through were realizing it and having a conniption fit as they did it. So it wasn't like they were just steaming through on purpose. As long as everybody maintains manners, etc. I mean, I've seen it. If you saw that Portlandia episode with people sitting at intersections waving everybody else through, it's kind of that way at that intersection at times. But it kind of feels to me like a light there would be overkill. I do agree with Chris's comments about Lad Hill and trying to get out of Willow Drive. It's tough to see cars coming down Lad Hill.
Oh, Ruth Ann, go ahead.
Yeah. I do see the point of some confusion there and difficulty. I think anytime we use a four-way stop at a place where there's a left turn lane, and I think there's one in all four directions there, you have someone in the left turn lane blocking the view of the person on the person in the right blocking the view of the person in the left turn lane. And I can see this citizen's request for a light to make that a little bit safer. I know we have crossing guards there during the time the kids are coming and going from school, but it would seem to me to be a lot safer, and perhaps something in the future we should be considering. Maybe not right now, but I find that an awkward intersection.
Appreciate all the dialogue. It's good. Captain Carlson or any other staff, is this, it seems like I recall that this intersection is on like a long-term plan, maybe in the transportation system plan for some improvements, but it's farther down in the future. Is that on track? Or...
I do not know about that. I can tell you that we haven't had very many that I'm aware of crashes at that intersection. We've done multiple focus patrols, extra patrols on Lad Hill and Willow and in that area too. That's a constant complaint generator for us, where we're constantly going out there and trying to enforce the speed limit. But crashes on that intersection, I think, is pretty minimal that I'm aware of.
And I know that intersection is in the TSP. I don't believe that it is identified to have a traffic signal there. I'm not 100% positive. So Bob, I'm not sure if you're frantically looking that up or not in the TSP. So yeah, I'm not 100% certain. I don't believe it is envisioned to have a signal. I think that there was just some improvements, like pedestrian crossing improvements that were envisioned, I believe. But I'm not certain.
I think Bob is just trying to figure out how to put a 2-lane roundabout in there.
Thanks, Mike. With a big planter in the middle.
No, I'm actually looking at a flyer so that people coming down Lad Hill Road can just actually leap right over Sunset.
Well, Chair, I'd offer that we see if Captain Carlson can do a little research just to see the number of accidents maybe in the last 5 years and maybe how many enforcement actions they've had there so that we have a little quantitative stuff that we can evaluate and see if more enforcement needs to be or what.
I just found the project in the transportation system plan, and it does identify a traffic signal.
Oh, okay. What page are you on? I just finally pulled that up.
It's in volume 2 on page 163.
Okay. I'm actually, so if it's in the TSP, then it's going to be in the CIP. It just isn't on the 5-year plan. Okay.
Yeah, I don't see a time frame. Oh, it's on long term.
Yeah.
It's also on page 169. It's identified as a long-term project, so my guess is it wouldn't meet warrants for a traffic signal at this point, but it would be interesting to understand if there's some accident history that we're not aware of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can do some research and get back to you guys next month.
Would a count of the traffic through that intersection be useful at this point, or is the actual accident record of more use to us?
So my opinion is that because the traffic system plan was just done in 2018 and identified a traffic signal as a long-term project, that it probably hasn't had enough increased traffic to raise to the level of needing a traffic signal yet. But I mean, we could ask if the city would get more traffic data. The accidents, I think, would be interesting to know, because regardless of how many cars are going through there, just a traffic volume, the traffic data, traffic counts will give you, like, are there too many cars going through there that we need a signal? Accidents would tell you if it's an unsafe intersection that a signal could potentially solve the issue.
One of our radar trailers does monitor all that traffic volume and speed. I'll have them put that out there on Lad Hill nearest the intersection, and hopefully I can get that data by the end of next month for our meeting. So at least we'll have some speed and car volume numbers for you.
Does the speed sign that's on Lad Hill on the whichever side that is, yeah, does that one does it collect data?
No.
And Captain, there's nothing coming down inbound like that, is there? Because I rarely go up Lad Hill and come back down. There's not a flashing speed, or is there?
I think,
No.
I was going to say, I thought there was at upper and lower.
I haven't traveled on that road lately, so last time I was up there wasn't, but I can't be 100% sure on that. I know there's speed signs in several spots coming into the city and in the city, but I'm not sure if they flash or not.
Where's the city limit in that area? How far does it go up the hill?
Right there at Brookman.
Okay. That's what I thought.
So you're going to put the trailer on Lad Hill on the south side.
Yeah, so we can get the speeds coming down the hill towards the intersection.
Okay. Okay, so is everyone good with tabling this one till next month? All right. Next we have 2021-002 Sherwood Boulevard request to move crosswalk signal from new school district office to Hawksview.
So I got a addendum for that regarding the person that filed the request. His intent regarding moving the traffic signal is meant to include the radar post on Southwest Sherwood Boulevard to closer to Hawksview Elementary School.
So does the district office, is that considered a school zone?
My understanding, and maybe Bob can help me with this, is no.
Correct, it is not. It's basically just it's not where students would normally be, so it's not classified as a school zone. It's a school facility, but not a school zone.
So we haven't moved the zone yet. It's still back up around the apartments versus down where the senior center would be, right? Is that kind of the move that would need to be made?
Yes, my understanding is for a school zone, it's roughly a minimum of 200 feet and no more than 400 feet from the end of the school property.
Is that something that's planned, that had been planned to be done or thought through with the school changes that happened? I guess I just want to understand if moving the school zone is something that we need to discuss and make a decision on, or if we should just focus on the signal, the request for the signal on the right.
I think the school zone sort of happens automatically with the school. It goes with the school. It's not I don't believe it's a decision that the committee makes. I think it kind of is what it is my understanding. So the question is really the traffic pedestrian light thing, and the sign. And I guess to me it seems like a obvious something that I mean personally I would support the concept. My concern is the infrastructure and cost to do it, especially for that signal. It's not just it's a substantial piece of equipment. If you're familiar with it, it's more like a traffic signal versus a pedestrian go and walk light type of thing. So Bob, I don't know if you've given any thought to what the costs would be, and not necessarily that that's your factor in making a recommendation, but it's something that ultimately the city manager is going to have to think about and kind of how we proceed in that regard.
I have thought about it. I've spoken to Public Works about it. Generally speaking, Public Works is saying that the signal is basically there for the benefit of the school district, and they would expect the school district to pony up some funds for that. Not only that, but the control for that signal, the newer ones, they're actually controlled by the school. So that if you just put it up there and say, okay, it's going to have a flashing light and it's controlled at the crossing, but the crossing is also connected to the flashing lights prior to the actual crossing itself. And those can be automatically from my experience as putting a couple of these in, can be actually controlled by the school when they have prior early releases to warn people. They can actually automatically turn those on, the flashing lights, prior to the crossing to indicate, to slow people down, give them prior warning of crossing. So there is a cooperative sort of funding issue with this. I don't expect the city in general to be able to afford to do all these school zone crossings when the school district does their change and stuff like that. Was it taken care of as part of the school changeover? No, it wasn't. Basically, it's within easy walking district of the elementary school. So they have to walk down the street to get to it. So you still have a crossing that's valid. It's not right in front of the school. Again, that's neither here nor there. I think discussions are going to have to go further along, and that's going to have to be dealt with at a higher level.
Because
Bob,
it's,
other than cost and who's going to pay for it, are there any concerns that you would have as a professional with relocating it so that it is closer to the elementary school building versus?
I would have to look at the sidewalk conditions to see if it's appropriately located. Sometimes you get an inappropriately located sidewalk crossing. There's that one on Sunset that I am not particularly thrilled with. I don't think it's appropriate to have it between two driveways like it is, but there it is. I think it's doable. I think it's appropriate to relocate it, and I don't think there's any technical reason why it cannot be done. We would have to analyze it to see where the best place is to locate it. You just don't pick it up and throw it down anywhere you want. It has to fit certain parameters, but it is doable.
so, Chair, I think this is a great request or complaint. It's clearly an issue that we haven't, with the new school buildings, that we haven't had to address because kids haven't been going to school. But I think I would ask or recommend that we ask staff to do a little more assessment, and maybe there needs to be some conversations with the school district too. And with the site of, or the goal of maybe having this taken care of in some fashion by the fall, if it can.
So maybe I just want to make sure I understand what we're talking about. The Hawksview is what the old Sherwood Middle School is, right? So there is an existing crossing in front of that school. So we're not, the request isn't to create a new crossing at Hawksview, it's to relocate the signal to the existing crossing at Hawksview. Am I understanding that correct? And then, Captain, you mentioned the radar sign. Is there like a speed feedback sign that lists the speed that people are driving? Is that what you're talking about?
On the radar trailers, yes.
You said there was an amendment that the person brought in. Is that what you were talking about? Is there a speed feedback sign? It doesn't look like it's in Street View, so I can't remember.
Yeah, it's a flashing school zone sign, I believe he's talking about. That's past the new city school district office.
So,
and there is a speed feedback element to that. If you're coming from
It flashes the speed limit, the speed you're
Yeah,
driving.
exactly. Yeah.
I recall that coming from 99. I don't think there is a similar one coming from Old Town. Is that a true recollection?
That's correct.
Okay.
So it seems to me like in my opinion the school zone signs, any signs that says you're entering a school zone, you need to go 20 miles an hour.
Mhm.
That those should just be relocated because they're not correct anymore. They're showing you to slow down in an area that's no longer a school zone. It sounds like. I don't know that needs any sort of action from us as in other than, an informal recommendation that the city go ahead and, make the changes. And if they need to coordinate with the school to do that, they do that. But right now, if you blow through that at 25 miles an hour, you're not breaking the law. Or are you? I don't know. So that piece of it, I think should just be taken care of and should have been taken care of, along with the school changes, because it's no longer a school zone is what I'm hearing. And then the traffic signal relocation and the speed feedback sign relocating. I agree that, if staff can coordinate with the city and kind of get some more feedback and understand if that can be relocated, that sort of stuff, and come back next month and discuss it some more, I think that'd be good. I think that speed feedback sign, though, that says what speed you're going also is a sign that says school zone.
I believe so, yes.
So that one probably needs to be relocated regardless of what we discuss. I mean, it's not in the correct location anymore.
I guess that depends on there was a guess as to what the actual distance for a school zone was, but I don't think we had that for sure. It's probably not asking for 20 miles per hour for very much unnecessary distance.
So can we just make an informal request that the city review the school zones and the signs in that area and locate signs appropriately as necessary, and then also coordinate with the school district to discuss what options there may be for relocating the traffic signal?
And I will check with the city attorney. To me, it seems silly to have to post notice to correct a sign, like if the school zone is not the school zone, but I'll just verify that. And then we could also go ahead and post notice about the potential signal location so that you at least have the opportunity to get those comments at your next meeting, assuming we have all the other information as well.
That sounds good. My guess is that if you can relocate those signals, it's going to turn into a full-blown crossing update. Because I think similar to that other crosswalk improvement that we did, what was it, Sequoia or something? They're going to find that the crosswalk doesn't meet current standards, and so you move that signal down there, it's going to turn into a big project. Not that it shouldn't happen, but I think it's not a simple thing to just
and that's a good point. And I guess I'd like your feedback. We can do notice, but then we run the risk of getting people's expectations up that we're going to do something that we may not be ready to do, or that even technically it might be a bigger project than we think. So we could come back to you next month with additional information, talk it through a little bit more, and then decide, yes, go ahead and notice it. It will drag it out a little bit longer, but if we're talking about trying to get this in place by the fall anyways, I don't know that there's a huge rush.
Is that one of the kinds of things that just gets a sign that says traffic control change, or is it going to say more than that about what the proposed change is being changes will be when it's posted.
So I think what you're referring to is slightly, I mean, that's more of a technical thing, and I can't answer that. You know, when you have actually a traffic control change, there's like notice in advance of traffic control change ahead type of thing. What I'm referring to is we actually post a notice. If you've seen like tree removal permit notices, those types of things, our land use notices, we post a sign that says, you know, notice of proposed whatever it is, with a little bit of detail, generally some like a map that provides a little bit of specificity about what we're doing, so that people walking by or driving by slowly, but in this case it would likely be walking by, can see what's being proposed and know how to contact and provide comments.
I like that. That makes sense. My only thought on wanting to not drag it out too long is that I think we had an annual budget for traffic safety sort of improvements, and I want to say it was like 100,000 or something, but I feel like we spent very little of it. And if we have an opportunity to use the remaining budget for something like this, it might help get something done.
How does carryover work? If we have a decision before the end of June, and the funds are allocated but not spent, how does that work with the city budget?
So it's often a case by case. The budget doesn't automatically like carry over or roll over. If we're aware of things, we can factor that in, and sometimes we'll do a supplemental budget. That's not uncommon for us through the CIP process, for example, to think, you know, we start our process, you know, 6 months before the end of the year, and so we make certain assumptions about where we're going to be, and sometimes we're wrong, and so then you might have to do a supplemental budget to allocate more money, so that, you know, we can certainly work through that. I do believe that a portion of the traffic safety committee budget per se is going to the Langer Farms roundabout restriping. So it's not, well, that what, you know, I gave you a briefing several months ago about that project, and that wasn't really your decision. But my understanding is that Craig Sheldon is planning on using some of those funds for that. So yeah, I don't think you can just tally up what you've approved and think you have the remainder. Sorry.
Well, we don't have budget authority. The city manager does. That's understandable.
That's good. Then you guys get to make all sorts of recommendations that you don't have to worry about paying for either. So that gives you more flexibility.
All right, are we good on that one? So we're gonna hear more info next month. All right, so that does it for issues. We'll move on to citizen comment.
Okay, so we have one citizen comment tonight, and this is in regards to request number 2020-007. It's a little bit lengthy, so bear with me here. I'm writing this letter as a first step in the process of appealing the Traffic Safety Committee's recent decision to eliminate a public parking space in front of our house at 20465 Southwest Lavender Place, where we have lived for the past 15 years. I believe this decision was made hastily with a limited amount of information and without public input from the residents that have been most affected. The notification sign that was placed on the street was located on the east side of the street only, and everyone believed that it was referring to the signage change in that location only, not on the west side where there has been open street parking since the development was constructed in 2005. Because we weren't adequately notified of the committee's intent and subsequent decision, we feel cut out of what should be a public process that has reduced the livability of our small community and has impacted the value of my property. Had we the opportunity to comment and provide input into the decision-making process, I would have provided the following bits of information to provide a broader context and hopefully a more reasonable decision. As previously mentioned, we have lived here for 15 years. We had our home constructed and picked our lot because it was on a dead-end street and had street parking available. 3 different families have lived next to us at the end of the street, and there has never been an issue with access, parking, or safety until recently. The Conzelman Farms neighborhood/development has very limited street parking available, and what exists is in a constant state of being occupied depending on the time of day. Parking problems prohibit many residents from hosting large gatherings during holidays pre-COVID, and even large birthday celebrations are tough. This limiting factor, combined with lots of children in the streets and an endless stream of delivery trucks, makes for a lot of congestion. Eliminating one of the open parking spaces on Southwest Lavender Place has made the situation worse and has impacted the livability of the neighborhood. Every parking space matters here. 2 no parking signs were recently installed in front of my house, and one was placed directly in front of my door. I have surveyed the neighborhood and can find no other example of such sign placement. Signs are always placed on the boundaries between lots. The signs as placed are an eyesore, and I believe that it has lowered the curb appeal and the resale value of my home. There should have been other alternatives considered, such as painted curb. In conclusion, the Traffic Safety Committee's decision to eliminate a parking space on Southwest Lavender Place was not made with input from any of the homeowners that live at the end of this street, nor was it made with any consideration of secondary impacts that it would produce. There are 6 homes that are directly impacted by this decision. A public meeting should have been scheduled and notices should have been mailed. None of that happened. Ironically, the elimination of a parking space in our neighborhood has made the streets more congested and less safe. I hope that the committee will reconsider their decision and seek to remedy the problem through a community-oriented solution and not one done in haste to meet the demands of a single resident. Sincerely, David Hoy and family.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Was there another or just that one?
Just that one.
All right. Does anybody have any comments or thoughts on that? Or I guess, does anybody have any comments or thoughts on anything not on the agenda before we close?
I would just like to say one thing. Last week's issue of the Willamette Week had a very interesting article. You're driving too damn fast. You may want to look at that article. Makes interesting reading, a lot of good information.
Thanks, Tony.
Thank you.
Chair, I'd move that we adjourn.
Sounds good to me.
Second.
All right. I don't think we have to vote on it, but we can since you did it. So all in favor?
Aye.
Bye.
All right. Have a good night, everybody.
You too.
Good night. Be safe.